Welcome back to the Chase Your Dreams podcast. I'm Brad. I'm here with Jackie Nguyen.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here. Just recently, a few weeks ago, I guess at this point, spoke at Chase Fest.
Yes.
So we were in this very building just less than a month ago, doing that whole thing. There's a lot we could talk about, Jackie. I think it might be helpful for anyone who's not super familiar with your work to just kind of describe what it is that you do at this point.
Yeah.
And maybe the logistics of what it is, but also the vision or bigger picture, your why, you know?
Yeah. So I'm Jackie, everyone. Hi, nice to meet you. I am an entrepreneur, but I guess my journey starts with Cafe Cà Phé, and I'm here because of Cafe Cà Phé. And Cafe Cà Phé is Kansas City's first and only Vietnamese coffee shop. And it started off as a pandemic necessity for me. I was not an entrepreneur before COVID. Before the pandemic, I was an actor and a performer, and I studied musical theater, and I did Broadway shows and Broadway tours. But I consider myself a business owner now. I consider myself somewhat of a leader, I guess, here in Kansas City for the Asian American demographic and community here. I'm not a politician. I'm not like an activist. I'm just a person from the community that really cares about people and cares about marginalized communities. And I just kind of tell my own perspective through my social media of my coffee shop. But yeah, my coffee shop is really important to me because it is one of the few spaces here in Kansas City and in the Midwest that helps amplify the Asian American perspective. There's not that much representation here. So a lot of what I try to do is tell my story and to help the Asian community feel more represented in everything that I do. So I'm kind of a mod podge of like different type of experiences, and I'm definitely an artist at heart. I'm a creator, I'm a storyteller, and now a business owner, very new to it, but I'm learning and just telling my story as I go.
Yeah. Well, you say you're not in politics, but I think the first time I learned about you was, I think I saw you in a picture maybe with Mayor Quentin Lucas or something.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought maybe you were a politician.
No, I'm definitely not a politician. I'm very opposite of that. I actually am not a big fan of politics, but I have tried to talk to, Mayor Q about getting Kansas City better representation for the Asian community. And so that does come with a lot of political conversations that you have to have with trying to create community centers for the city. At one point, I did join the Parks and Rec department. I was a commissioner for that for a year. That's not a political position, but it's definitely considered, up there with city council. But I joined that so that I could learn more about Kansas City and about community centers and just like broaden my knowledge about the city. But no, I've tried to just get Mayor Q very involved in a lot of the conversations, because I know that, in order to move the needle, sometimes you do have to like poke at different people of power. But I'm not political. No, not at all.
Super active in the community though, which is amazing. Yes. I want to dig into your history as an actor a little bit. Yeah. And was that mainly on film, or was that
mainly stage? I have dabbled in film and commercial work a lot, but I studied musical theater at Cal State Fullerton, so Southern California. I was born and raised in San Diego, so I'm Southern California baby. And I did a conservatory at Cal State Fullerton, got my BFA in musical theater. I moved to LA for a year, and then I moved to New York, and then I lived in New York for over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And I pursued musical theater. I did majority of my work was touring. So a lot of the Broadway shows that you see that tour through, the major theaters here in town, that was my bread and butter. So I did a lot of different shows. And I was actually still acting during the pandemic. And that's kind of what happened with my show, was that the show that I was doing at the time shut down because of COVID. And I was acting all the way up to 2020. So
wow.
I still had the show that I was supposed to do, still had about 7 months left of the tour.
Yeah.
And it was like March 2020. And just like everybody else, it shut down and changed my entire life. And so, that was my history, was musical theater and acting.
Yeah. And with film, there's the benefit of close mics and editing. There's a lot of dynamics that you can get away with on film, but when you're on a stage, you really have to ratchet up those emotions and stuff.
Yeah, it's live.
Yeah.
Every performance every night has to be 150% because every audience is new. Every time you do the musical or play, it's a new experience every time you do it. So
yeah. And is it true that you have to be at least a little bit mentally ill to live in New York?
1,000%. You gotta be a little cray-cray. Yeah. And I made it through 10 years. After you make it 10 years anywhere, you become like a New Yorker or like a Midwesterner.
Just honorary New Yorker.
I definitely feel like I have that badge of being a New Yorker. I suffer through a lot during that time in New York, but
there, I think in some ways, obviously the United States is multicultural in its own right, but a lot of the cities kind of feel the same. There's like a downtown area, there's some cool suburbs, whatever. New York, there's one type of city like New York, and it's New York.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Do you feel like living there, because you went from New York to Kansas City?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that move is what really drove a lot of your intuitions and motivations behind, I need a more diverse atmosphere?
1,000%. I mean, when I was in Kansas City, I moved to Kansas City because of necessity. I was actually in Fort Myers at the time on tour, and my ex-boyfriend is from Kansas City, and he was also on the tour. And so we both were like, our tour managers were just like, hey, there's this pandemic happening. We need to leave Fort Myers, and we need to just like come back in 2 weeks after all of this has settled. At the time, we thought that that's what COVID was. And so my ex-boyfriend was like, let's just go to Kansas City. Let's figure this out. I was like, okay, sure. Like, my apartment in New York was still being subletted at the time. And I didn't know the severity of COVID. I had no idea. I don't think any of us did. And so I ended up coming to Kansas City. And while I was here, I just had my ex and his family at the time. I didn't really have any other friends here. And the biggest motivation of starting Cafe Cà Phé was to make some friends and make some community that was more diverse. Definitely my transplant mind and experiences drove me to seek a more diverse community because, growing up in California, and then living in New York for so long and doing so many tours that traveled all over the world, I was used to so much more diverse places that I just didn't feel like I saw that in Kansas City right away. Mind you, I'm not from here. And also it was the pandemic. It was a very crazy time for all of us. Right. And I truly created my business out of like necessity and just like the need to make some money and to kill some time, and then also to make some friends. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, I was reading this book. It's called 0 to 1. Have you ever read it?
No, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
And it's by this guy, Peter Thiel, who's a really successful entrepreneur. And he says somewhere in the book something like, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something like, I wouldn't wish starting a business on my worst enemy.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. And I also have an entrepreneurial itch that I have to scratch. And so I've kind of been there. And you posted something on your story recently where you were like, only my business friends are going to get where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Let's dig into that. Like entrepreneur life, you said you've never done this before.
Yeah.
What are some of the lows that come with that, and also the gratification of getting the thing up and running?
Yeah. So that's so funny that you say that quote, because I say I apply that to a lot of the musical theater kids that I have talked to. And I'm like, if there's anything else that you want to do that's not musical theater, do that. And then I apply that to owning a business now as well. If there's anything else that you find joy and solace in, do that before you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I say both of those things because both of those careers are not just careers, they're like lifestyles.
Yeah.
And that is the number one thing that I've learned about entrepreneurship is that it's not a career, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle change. And you have to be fully prepared to have your entire routine, everything that you're accustomed to as a human being, it changes. And in entrepreneurship, I think some of the lows it just is never ending. There's no real exit to it until you decide yourself to be like, no, I'm done. I want to, go back to a 9 to 5. I want to start working for someone else. Another low would be it feels kind of lonely. It's hard because you are the only person that is in control of what you're doing and you are your own boss. And so with that, there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of loneliness that comes with it. And it is just nonstop. So if you want a break, if you want to have a more comfortable lifestyle, I definitely don't recommend entrepreneurship because it's very uncomfortable. But on the opposite end of it, you have the freedom of doing truly whatever you want with your life. You have the freedom of directing your own life in whatever ways that you want. You can create your own opportunities. You can create your own staff. There's so many amazing freedoms that comes with being your own boss and owning businesses and trying things out. It is definitely a lifestyle for me. Although it is difficult, it's still something I prefer to do.
Yeah.
I appreciate the creative freedom. I appreciate the fact that I get to call my own shots and I get to do some of the projects and the things that I've always wanted to do but never had permission to do before. So yeah, there's so many like ups and downs to it, but ultimately I choose the lifestyle because it fits the things that I want to achieve in my life more.
Yeah. Have you ever stepped back to consider that you built something out of the necessity of wanting community, and then once it got up and running, it made you feel lonely?
Yes, but I also have never felt more community in my life before either. So in the entrepreneurship little compartment, I feel alone because this is the first of its kind here in Kansas City, and the things that I'm trying to do is very unique to the city.
Yeah.
But then I've also fostered such a strong and beautiful community where I feel so not alone in that, and that has been filling my cup more as well. So the price is definitely worth it. Like my mom always says, there's a price you have to pay to everything that you want to achieve, and is the price too high in certain things, or is the price just enough? And for me, it's like, it's beyond worth it. Like I feel a pinch of loneliness, but the rewarding factor of like having endless community and just like real people that experience the actual change that I'm trying to do is just like fundamentally like so much more rewarding than I've ever experienced with any show or any other job I've had.
Yeah. And you also finished another really heavy lift recently, which was your festival.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because it seems like in a lot of what you're trying to accomplish these days, a big piece of it is boosting the signal of the Asian community.
Yeah.
So let's chat about your recent festival.
Yeah. So my coffee shop every year has thrown a Heritage Festival in the month of May, celebrating, the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander community. Before my coffee shop existed, Kansas City didn't even recognize May officially as an API month. And so in 2021, that was the first time the city recognized it on paper with the mayor and everything, that the city itself recognizes May. And so from that point on, our coffee shop decided to throw a community event. The first 2 years, it was at Columbus Park, at Columbus Park Square Park. And the growth of it was like, the first year was pretty small. We had a few vendors. We had a small stage, a few performers. Last year, it like doubled in size. And then this year, as our third annual festival, it just tripled in size. And we got to hold it at CPKC Stadium, which is the new stadium for the Kansas City Current.
Yeah.
And having our festival at this brand new stadium that's the first in the entire world for women's soccer, having that representation and having that legitness really like catapulted our event to like this new level. But yeah, we had a full day event where we had like a full stage, all Asian performers, an Asian DJ, an Asian MC, over 60 vendors were there, over 10 food trucks, and like 95% of the vendors and the participants of that event were all AA and HPI identifying. So the community got to support hundreds of Asian small business owners. We got to have a performance schedule all day of just like incredible like Polynesian dancers, hula dancers, like dragon dancers, just all types of cultural just like celebrations that day. It was a really beautiful festival. I'm so proud of my coffee shop. Over I want to say 2,500 people showed up, over 4,000 registrants. Like it was just huge. It was huge, way beyond what we could have imagined back in the day. But yeah, that's a main thing, is trying to create events and opportunities for the Asian community here in Kansas City, because there's not a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. It looked like the place to be. I saw videos and so I was like, yo, this is great. And the double whammy, like you said, of the KC Current Stadium.
Yeah.
To have that.
It was a huge deal. It was beyond my wildest dreams, honestly. But I'm just like, I'm still processing it. I'm still definitely like, it was about 2 weeks ago, but we have been planning it for an entire year. And just to see it come to life and be successful was like more than I could have ever asked for. So
the next day it's like, oh, there's a coffee shop to run.
No, literally. I was like, okay, now we got to keep going.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, congratulations on it. Honestly,
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
How do you feel about Asian representation in Kansas City? How do you feel about race relations in general in Kansas City when it comes to the Asian community? And I ask because it wasn't that long ago that COVID was creating a lot of tension, a lot of violence against the Asian community.
Yeah.
Where are we at with that?
It's still honestly not the best, mainly because now it's kind of gone silent. And I feel like that could be a little bit more dangerous in ways, because in the Midwest specifically, there's not a lot of representation here. Not that there's a lack of culture that exists. It just is a lack of mainstream representation, meaning like in Kansas City, we don't even have a Asian community center. And like, to me, that's mind boggling that like there are tons of different other facilities for other different cultures. But in a major city such as Kansas City, you know, like we're on the map now, right? Like no one doesn't know who we are because of the Chiefs, because of the Taylor Swift. Like there's just so many things that I feel like at least people have Kansas City on their radar. For sure. And when I first moved here, there was really no representation, and it was really hard, honestly. Because I'm a transplant. I'm not from here, and I only speak from my perspective. I only try to, I don't speak on behalf of the whole Asian community. I just speak from where my lens is. And when I walked into Kansas City, I felt very invisible. I felt like no one really had thoughts or opinions or even like knew about the Asian culture here, because everyone's pretty much like complacent and silent. And I feel like that's dangerous. In 2020 and 2021, the uprise of hate crimes for especially against Asian and Asian Americans rose like to 250%, which is like absurd. And I think that at that time there were a lot more eyes and ears on the Asian community, and there was a lot more stories being told, a little bit more news outlets were covering certain things, but now it's kind of died down. And I think people have just been like, well, like, there's no issues, like, it's fine, that community should be fine. And that's really dangerous and not good, because people are assuming that we're okay. And we're not, because like there's not much that has improved other than maybe my coffee shop doing more events. There's a little bit more eyes and ears knowing that there's a community that exists.
Yeah. But
the city itself hasn't really made strides towards creating a better community pocket for us, I guess. So in ways it's gotten better because there's more small businesses that have the courage to be a little bit more vocal. There's more awareness that, hey, there is this problem, but there's no like problem solving or any like steps towards like creating a difference yet.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who is trying to do the work constantly. Yeah. I often feel like I'm kind of alone in that. But a lot of my other Asian friends like have been more encouraged to create more festivals, create more events. And I'm really excited to see the growth.
Yeah, I mean, just as kind of an outsider really to that community, I think that you're doing an awesome job. It is kind of one of those no news is good news kind of vibes. If there's not a violent act or something, sometimes the city can see it that way.
Yeah.
But also just raising the city's consciousness to the amazing aspects of Asian culture. So like when I first heard about your coffee shop, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to figure out how to type in these accents right on the name. You know, it's good to challenge yourself in that way.
Yeah.
And absorb the artwork when you walk in and stuff.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, you know, again, like I said, like I'm not a political person. I didn't ever consider myself an activist or anything. I'm an Asian person in this community who happens to be vocal and who happens to want to say, hey, like this is not cool. We need more people and businesses and places that feel safe for people that look like me. And that's basically all I tried to do and all I try to continue to do. And I definitely like I'm learning how to step into places that welcome that and how to balance, you know, just being a person that just wants change, truly, for people that look like me, because there are a lot of people that look like me here in the city that don't necessarily feel welcomed or feel like there's a place for us.
You mentioned a word that I really want to hit on, I'm curious about, and that's balance. Oh. And in our program, we talk about this a lot, and we talk about, you know, a lot of people will acknowledge their physical health. Many people these days acknowledge their mental health. Some people will acknowledge that there's also emotional or spiritual aspects to your health, and that really those kind of four main buckets, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, most life issues or considerations can be kind of squeezed into one of those. And about how there's a lot of pressure in a modern day to kind of have that balance.
Yeah.
And so as an entrepreneur, I'm sure that's crazy hard. As someone who's, you know, speaking up for a disadvantaged population, I'm sure that's very hard. But what are some of the ways that you recognize, hey, Jackie's out of balance right now? And then how do you bring those back into balance?
So balance and boundaries are very difficult for me. Those two words are triggering. And
sorry.
Yeah, come on. No, I personally struggle so much with balance. I struggle so much with boundaries. I grew up in a household that boundaries didn't really exist. And in the Asian culture, boundaries don't really exist as well. And so culturally, I didn't really grow up with positive boundaries or any boundaries, to be honest with you. My mom was always in my business. My mom dictated a lot of the things that I needed to do. She controlled and had a say in pretty much everything that I did. And culturally, I'm Vietnamese, and like we have to really respect our elders in our culture, and that is just part of it. You listen to your elders. You know, if they say that that's what you need to do, you do it. And that did translate into how I work as an adult. And I'm definitely like trying to unlearn certain toxic parts of that, but also keep parts of it because I respect parts of it as well that are culturally like ingrained in me, and that has taught me hard work, has taught me to not give up, you know, and some of those lessons, like you can't have boundaries. You have to learn the hard way sometimes. But with balance, I don't practice what I preach because it's really hard for me. I preach, yeah, you need to drink water, you need to sleep, you need to take days off, you know, and I wish I could practice that more for myself because there are times where I don't even know how to cope with my stress. I don't even know how to, I will burn out so fast because I will go and go and go until I hit a wall. And like obviously that's not healthy. That's not the best way to go about doing things. You know, you got to run on full. You can't run on empty, but I'm learning. I'm trying to readjust my boundaries. I'm trying to create some sort of structure in my life where I can, you know, wake up and drink some water and, you know, have 5 minutes of my day to like just stop and process. But balance is very, very hard. And I feel like a little kid in an adult body figuring all of this out for the first time. But balance and boundaries have been probably my biggest challenge as an entrepreneur, because when I used to work for other people, right, there were schedules and there were directions, and at least I knew, okay, like if I have a show to do, I check in at this time, I perform the show, I leave, like, you know, I'm someone else's employee. So there are already established rules and boundaries. Now that I own my own business and I call all the shots, I do everything, I have no directions or guidebooks or rules that I follow. I have to create all of that and have other people follow it alongside me. So it's been very hard for me. I've burnt out. I've like had a few mentee bees in the past few years for sure. I'm a huge advocate for therapy, huge advocate for life coaching, huge advocate for medication if you need it. Like, and all those boxes, like, check. Like, I have a therapist, I have a life coach, I'm on antidepressants. There's so many boundaries and good habits I'm trying to implement into my life, but it's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Oh my gosh, so many questions I have after that.
Please ask away.
Well, for one, I think that I don't want to gloss over the relationship with your mom. You know, when you were talking, it kind of reminds me of every superhero kind of has their origin story. Yeah. And, you know, Batman wanted to overcome crime in Gotham because he watched his parents being killed when he was a little kid. Yep. Spider-Man was bit by the spider. Yep. Do you think that part of your story was, as an entrepreneur and choosing that path, was trying to overcome that control and influence at home for so long that you needed to break out, be your own person, be your own boss?
100%. I mean, everything, probably 75 to 90% of what I do, the derivative is to make my mom proud. And like, I grew up in a single family home. It was just my mom that raised me. She's a Vietnam War refugee, single mother. You know, there are a lot of things that I'm also first generation. I'm the only one in my family to be born in America out of all my siblings and everything. So they experienced the Vietnam War and I didn't. Wow. So I'm the very first one in my family to have also like a natural born citizenship as well. And so in Vietnamese culture, a lot of Asian cultures as well, to them, that's like a ticket to success almost, because it's like you are already born with more freedoms than they have ever had in their own country. And so growing up, I had extreme pressure to be successful. And it was always like with school, my mom was a very typical Asian mom where it was like I had to have straight A's. I had to, you know, school was the number one thing that I had to always be good at. And actually one of my first things that I finally did for myself was musical theater. That was my first, I guess, like attempt of like creating my own path for myself, but I still had to listen to my mom. I still had to get straight A's to do it. But everything that I do is, there is still a pinch of like, I want to make my mom proud, because like she struggled so much to come to America, you know, like all the things that my mom had to endure. Even though I've had a pretty tough childhood and pretty tough life, cannot even compare to a fraction of like what my mom has endured.
Yeah.
And I just have a better appreciation of like her journey. And so for me, it fuels me to be more successful, because I don't want her life and all the things that she's, you know, survived to kind of be like, I don't know, I want to succeed for her.
Yeah.
So that she can say like, oh my gosh, I went through all this stuff, but like my daughter has succeeded. And I think I've done that many times over with I've lived many lives in many different careers. And thankfully my mom has witnessed a lot of that and has been like, I am so proud. So like, yes, definitely. Everything that I do has my mom and my culture attached to the reason why I do certain things. But yes, in a way also my art and my entrepreneurship is my own way of carving my own path. But there is definitely still the root of it is for my mom.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's balanced. You know, it sounds like that's as balanced as the other thing that I thought was really interesting that you mentioned was you said therapy check, life coaching check, and medication, I think was the other one. And so I'll in just the spirit of vulnerability, since you're being very vulnerable. So I have bipolar 2 and and OCD, and I've had every coping mechanism in the book. I exercise, I keep a gratitude journal, I do I'm sober, you know what I'm saying? And still sometimes it was impossible to live without a medication. So for one, I just wanted to say that to anybody who hears this, like, it's okay, even if you're natural medicines, whatever, sometimes just get to a doctor, have that conversation. If nothing else, it can be a patch while you figure things out.
Totally.
Secondly, I wanted to talk about life coaching, because a few years into doing the work that we do, I was trying to explain what we do to people. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you're like a life coach for youth. And I was like, oh, I guess so. You know, I hadn't really ever considered that. And so I'm actually in the process right now of getting a certification. I'm doing like a 6-month program to become an integrative wellness life coach.
Nice.
And I think that there's a pretty large misunderstanding about what that even is. Yeah. Especially related to therapy and trauma. Yep. So I want to hear from you as someone who's experienced both. Yep. Why do you go to life coaching versus why do you go to therapy? Yeah. So therapy, on the note of being very vulnerable, I was really, really depressed going into my 20s. I lost my brother when I was 19, and that was like a huge hit for my family. We were a very small family, and then my older brother passed away very suddenly when I was 19. And then after that, it seemed like I just went through like a myriad of just like traumas. Like I went through a really horrible relationship. My mom like had to move. We got evicted. Just like a lot of hard things that were happening in my life at the time. And I went to therapy to learn how to process my grief. And I feel like with therapy, it's a lot of tools with having to process trauma and your past. And then life coaching for me feels like more future planning, life planning, a lot more not really you can integrate a lot of your trauma, but I had already worked on the tools of how to communicate and how to move forward with my life, and how to process grief and how to process codependency, a lot of the toxicity in my family. So therapy was helping me figure out all of the mess in my life and how to like kind of use the tools to make sure that I'm processing all the bad stuff and the junk, right? Yeah. Life coaching for me was separate, where, okay, I know how to process all this, but now I need someone to help look at my life and the goals that I have. And kind of like, I do a lot with my best friends. We always talk about, hey, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? But a life coach kind of helped me
put that all on paper, talk to someone who was not really attached to my trauma or attached to my life, but could just kind of help me learn about what do I want with the rest of my life? How do I see my work, my relationships? How do I put all of that together and help me formulate a better plan?
Yeah.
So I feel like life coaching is more future planning and more like how to create a better, full balanced meal for your life, versus therapy for me is a very specific emotional tool and resource for tools to process the bad stuff and the things that you've already encountered in your past. Because in a lot of the therapy work that I was doing, I felt like I learned a lot of the tools, and I was like, okay, like I was going through a lot of these conversations I was having with my therapist, and I felt like I needed different guidance for different parts of my life. And so that's why I explored life coaching, and I love it because so many of I'm also part of different entrepreneur cohorts. I'm part of like different business groups, and every entrepreneur that I know also have life coaches, and they have I've seen them as people and business owners excel. And so I was like, I need a life coach too. And so,
That's awesome. I've noticed too that life coaching can sometimes be a good precursor for someone who might need therapy but isn't quite willing to go there.
Yeah, therapy can sound scary, I think, and then life coach sounds a little bit more like a camp counselor,
more fun.
More fun. But I don't know. I mean, both of my therapists and my life coaches have been instrumental in just like helping me not feel so nuts and not feel alone, and knowing that I'm doing whatever I possibly can in my own control to like be a better person for myself.
Yeah. I also feel like another thing that gets uncovered a lot in a life coaching environment are limiting beliefs. And there's this big to-do nowadays about releasing these limiting beliefs. Is that something you've ever struggled with, especially coming up through starting something new like a coffee shop? Were you ever like, who are you to try this?
Oh my gosh. Every day, and even right now, so much of life coaching is like perspective and like changing your mindset, right? And I have done a lot of work with feeling way less than, not just in a community, but in the business community, in the coffee shop community, in the theater community, just as a minority woman. And as in the minority group as well, being the minority of the minority too in Kansas City. Walking into a space, I always feel kind of like, who am I? Like, who am I? Who's going to want to hear what I have to say? I'm not anybody. I don't have power. I don't have money. Like, I don't have anything to my name. Like, why would someone care about what I have to say? And I have to like combat that constantly to be like, no, there are idiots out there that have owned coffee shops or have podcasts or have said their opinions. Like, what makes you feel like you can't do that? Right. And it's like practicing that.
Yeah.
But I've had those thoughts constantly, and you can't walk through the world owning a business feeling like that. Like you got to just break that habit and be like, no, I am worth it and I can do these things. And if I can't figure it out, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Agreed. It's always so interesting doing podcasts. I feel like I get to sit across from a lot of really interesting people, and it's always so funny to hear them say that, because, when we were considering Chase Fest speakers and stuff, we were drawn to you for everything that you're doing that's interesting.
Oh my goodness.
And so to sit there and be like, oh, I don't know. But anyway. All right. So I want to, a couple times you've mentioned your art.
Yeah.
All right. I want to kind of double click on this topic because I have a history with music. I'm always around artistic, creative, interesting people. And I know that it can be a really healthy coping mechanism and also just a cool way to express yourself. And the first time I ever walked into your shop, I had too much caffeine already. And I went into the bathroom with the mirrors.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, but just from the moment I walked in, it was clear that it was very intentional, very aesthetic, but also very comfortable. So Yeah, let's talk about your creative mind. What type of art are you up to, and the branding even for the company?
So, Cafe Cà Phé, I treat as my blank canvas. And basically, all I know is show business. Now I know more business than show business, but, that's what I went to school for. That was like all my adulthood. All I did was show business. And so I kind of translated that mindset into my business. I treat my staff like they're a cast ensemble. We give show notes, which is weekly emails, being like highs and lows, like things to look out for. Whether this is good or bad or just it is what it is, but like I critique my baristas as if they're actors. Like I give them straightforward, very like, you can't take it personal. This is just what it is. And that's hard too if you're not an artist, because artists are so used to getting criticized hardcore. We got to have thick skin because it's not personal. It's part of our jobs. It's part of our career. So if someone is saying like, okay, I need you to do this more, I need you to do that more. For me, I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to move over here a little bit more. I need to, adjust my light. I need to, speak louder. It's not personal. It's technical. In a coffee shop environment, I try to translate that as well. I'm like, hey, we got to have a better tone. We have to have a better mood when people walk in. It's not personal. It's show business. And when I first opened my shop or my company, I was like, this is my show. What do I want it to look like? What do I want to feel like? Who are the people that I want to be part of this ensemble? And I just love the freedom of being able to be as creative as I want. Like literally, I'm like, well, it's my company. I'm the owner. This is the first time I get to do anything on my own. I've always wanted to be the director, the choreographer, like, to have the power to just be able to say, yes, I want to create these type of things, these type of videos, these type of drinks. So I'm very intentional about everything that I do because it is kind of my creative project. Like I get to creative direct the whole thing. And so, yes, like art is a huge, huge part of who I am. And I want my brand to represent who I am. And so I've, created murals on all the walls that represent the colors and the culture, and even the people that paint it are represented. My murals have been done by, Asian queer tattoo artists. Everything that you see everywhere, like there's intention behind the colors. The maximalist vibes of it is very much because I am a maximalist. Like I love colors. I love accessories. I really wanted my brand to feel like it's me.
Yeah.
And that comes with the creative freedom of being able to be like, for the first time, a project can just like reflect who I am as a person. And I don't have to, say a script that someone else wrote or, wear someone else's costumes or, I look at it from a literal performing arts background. That's all I know. And so I try to translate that, and it just makes it way more fun. It makes it less businessy, more artsy. It makes it feel like I'm actually doing just a show versus like running a business. Yeah. It feels, when I translate it into those terms, it makes it more feasible for me. Yeah. Because when I put it in like, oh, I don't have a business degree, I've never done my own business, I've never, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, you were in show business, which is one of the hardest businesses of all. You were your own business as an actor. So like when I just translate it into terms that I understand, it feels like I can tackle it more. So yeah, I do everything in my shop. I run it like it's a show.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we were just talking, me and Joey were just talking about before you showed up about how there's these sometimes on-set dynamics between the director who's gone out of control and you need a good assistant director to kind of manage the personalities sometimes. Do you have a right-hand person that's like, Jackie, the yellow stripe doesn't need to...
Yes, I have a team of managers. I have a general manager, and then I have 4 other managers, but also the whole staff. Like I give my entire staff permission to call me out, to communicate with me openly. We have a very, very honest and authentic work environment where I have welcomed the staff to call me out and to say, hey, this event fits well with our dynamic, or maybe we're doing too much, or, but ultimately, no. I mean, I do call a lot of those shots, and that's the beauty again of like owning your own business is you get to do all that stuff, and but I do have a whole team of people that help me reel some of the crazy ideas that I have in sometimes. But for the most part, luckily, I have also crafted a whole team of artists that want to play just as much as me, who want to create just as much as I do. And so in a way, I have people that are egging me on too to do the bigger things.
You've created your echo chamber of wild ideas. That's great. And another thing you've been really intentional about in the creative community, I should say, is lifting up other voices. So did I see recently that you are taking on another Vietnamese coffee project as sort of a...
Yeah, I'm mentoring another young girl who's Vietnamese, and she wants to open her own Vietnamese coffee shop, which would be the second Vietnamese coffee shop here in Kansas City. And she was really overwhelmed, and she's a lot younger than I am. And asked if I could help mentor her. And I was like, hell yeah, let me help you. Because part of my culture as well is like a village community mentality. Yeah. We are very much about helping others because when other people rise, you also rise. And I personally love collaborating. I personally love doing things that help other people. It's just in my nature. My mom's always been that woman that like when you come to our house, you're always fed. You never leave empty-handed. She will make sure, you have a jacket before she does. Like that's just my mom. I was raised like that. So I don't know any other way other than to like be very like communal in that way. Yeah. I love helping others. I almost joined the Peace Corps at once. Like it's just something I'm very passionate about. And I personally just feel like I have a purpose in my life if I'm helping others. And that's not true for everyone, right? Not everyone feels that calling, but I do. And so if anyone ever asks for my help and I have the capability to help, I will. I'm definitely learning how to set boundaries, right, to protect myself. But at the end of the day, like this girl who's also Vietnamese, who is doing what I did 4 years ago. Yeah. If I could help her and help her cut corners, help her learn better and like be like, no, I made that huge mistake. Don't do that. Like, don't waste your money and time on that. Like skip that. Yeah. So yeah, I'm helping her for sure. Just like whatever I possibly can. Yeah. With just like networking or forming a business or making a little bit better informed business decisions. Like I'm no pro, but I definitely just can give her my perspective.
Yeah.
But
you can give her the punch list of mistakes you've made.
1000%. Yeah.
Well, I think that it's beautiful that you're really walking the walk in that way in terms of helping people.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people would be tempted, let's say as the first Vietnamese coffee shop in Kansas City, to kind of use that identifier as a first to market, come see us kind of thing. And you're saying, no, community is more important. In fact, I'm going to build up another thing that's kind of like mine and not see it as competition, but see it as a way to build each other up. I think that's awesome.
I don't like even the word competition because like for me, first of all, there is no competition because none of us exist here. So that's already like out of the picture. Right. So like, yes, I am the first of its kind, but it's so lonely like that, right, too. And the fact that there's another Vietnamese coffee shop popping up, her style is going to be completely different too. But it's also coffee. Like I look at coffee and food like music. Like it's a matter of taste. It's not competitive. Like there's always going to be people that love pop and rock and rap, and that's not going to be for everyone. Just like coffee, like Vietnamese coffee is for certain people, and there's other coffee shops, there's Starbucks, there's, Jamba Juices, there's Ruby Jeans. There's like something for everyone because of taste. Yeah. And so I think it's silly when people are like, oh, I'm going to be competitive when it's according to people's taste. And like, you can't dictate people's likes and dislikes when it comes to taste. Like it's just a matter of their taste, right? Like you could literally serve the same cup of coffee to two different people, but someone's going to like it and someone's going to not because of like their preference. And so for me, I think it's so crazy when food and like different establishments are like, oh, well, we got to be the only one. I'm like, you're first of all, like you're not in the world anyway. So like, why think that you are superior to anybody? Like that's crazy. But I don't know. Musical theater is very communal and ensemble based, and like actors can't exist if there are other people supporting in the audience or other actors or, you know, costumers. And for me, if there's going to be another Vietnamese coffee that pops up, a coffee shop that pops up, that's another community member of mine that can relate to me, that understands me, that is giving me a sense of like, I'm not alone. And I love that feeling. I'd rather that. And I think both of us succeeding together is for the collective versus just for me. I don't think about just for me. I think about the collective, about representation for the Midwest, Vietnamese people here in Kansas City. Like, sure, I can think about just me and my own business, but where will that get me? Like personally, it doesn't get me far, personally. And I don't know. That's just not my style. I like having friends. I don't know, like community to me feels so much more rewarding than like being selfish and being like, no, I just want Cafe Cà Phê to be the only one. Like, I don't want that. I want there to be other ones so that like I can have friends and that we can like do things together. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
Oh, I mean, I totally agree. I think community and experience, those are currencies that are much deeper and richer than money could ever be.
Yeah. And I think that like if both of us are succeeding, it shows not just the city, but the Midwest and United States, like there's space for us here, even in a small Midwestern city that might not have a huge landscape of Asian people. The fact that two Vietnamese coffee shops can exist here is just beautiful to me. And like, I want to be able to flourish and to like succeed just as much as I want Nhung and Origin Coffee to succeed as much as Cafe Cà Phê. Like, it feels to me that our culture succeeds versus just us, right? Like the things that our parents have suffered from, we get to like show that, hey, both of us can, you know, do what our parents didn't get to do. So I think about the collective success versus just mine, because both of our successes helps our community versus just like, if I'm just selfish in that, my community doesn't succeed if she doesn't get to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really cool to witness, for the record.
Thanks. I don't get to witness it the way that you get to witness it because I'm in it.
Right.
But sometimes when, you know, other people remind me of that, I'm like, that is pretty rad.
It is cool.
Yeah.
You like showed up, planted your flag.
Yep. And then more people were like, oh, I can too? Yeah. Hell yeah. Like that is literally like, I didn't intend that either. So for it to just organically happen in that way too is so beautiful.
Absolutely. Well, I have one more question and maybe we can kind of wrap it here.
Sure.
But so the name of this podcast is Chase Your Dreams, and that's kind of a moniker we use for a lot of the youth in the program and stuff. You're someone who it seems like has already chased and caught a couple dreams.
Yeah.
And your story kind of reminds me of that Jim Carrey quote or whatever. He says something like, I wish everybody could be rich and famous so they realize that like there's nothing. Yeah. So as someone who just went through the mud to get this dream captured and now it's here, when you think about your future or what's next, where does your mind go to? Are you satisfied where you're at? You don't strike me as someone who's like willing to just
settle,
chill where you're at, but you know what I mean? What's next for you relative to your dreams?
Dude, I don't even know. Like, I have so many other dreams, but I didn't know that these dreams could be possible until I just went through the mud and went through all the hardships to capture those dreams, right? Like, you don't know that your dreams are coming true until it actually happens, or until honestly past the point. Yeah. And like, some of my dreams growing up was like, you know, I have a very unique perspective. I grew up very, very, very poor, single mother. Like, to me, one of my biggest dreams was just to like travel, because to me, traveling was a rich man's like, you know, hobby.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to like fly a plane, or no, there's no way I'm going to leave the United States or like anything like that. And for the majority of my adult musical theater career, all I did was travel. I saw the world. I performed in China, like, you know, I performed in all of Europe and Paris. Like, just like, I got to see the world. And to me, that was like one of my biggest dreams as a little girl, was just to see more than I could afford.
Yeah.
And I got paid to do those things. So I was like, oh my God. And then capturing like a Broadway show, that was one of my biggest dreams. I did that. And then making a change, like that was one of my biggest dreams. And like I achieved that with Cafe Cà Phé. But in order for me now to say, what's next? Are there other dreams that I can achieve? Plays hand in hand with the mindset of like, who are you to achieve more? Like, you've already done enough, or like, you know, you didn't even think that was possible. So what makes you think? But I countered that mindset, and I still achieved a lot of those dreams. So then it opens my mind to being like, oh my gosh, like I can actually do way more than I actually thought I could ever. Can I start achieving like these bigger, like more massive dreams that I never thought I could?
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, I'm trying to also learn balance. I'm trying to soak in my achievements and be proud of the things that I have achieved, so that I'm not constantly attaching my worth to achievements. Because for a long time, that's all I was doing, was like, if I don't get this college degree, I'm not worth it. If I don't get this musical theater job, I'm not worth it. If I don't marry this person, I'm not worth it. Like, you know, all of these things that I attached my worth was achievements. And I think now I'm trying to just like bottle up my worth and drink it and like let it soak in me and be like, no matter what you do, no matter what you've achieved, you are still worth it. You are still worth someone's time. You're still worth chasing those dreams. You have everything that you need and more to chase whatever you want to chase.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work on not attaching my worth to these achievements, but actually saying that I am worth it and that I can achieve so much more than I could possibly imagine, because of not just the things that I've achieved, but just because of like all the hardships that I kind of went through. And I'm still standing, I'm still alive, I'm still here with you, I'm still being able to tell my story, which gives me another chance to like chase some future stuff. I don't know what's next for me, to be honest with you. I didn't expect Cafe Cà Phé, so I don't even know. I planned to just be an actor, and my plan went askew for the best reasons. So right now I can tell you, you know, I dream more for myself as far as making bigger change in the Midwest. I would love to somehow bring more light to Asians in the Midwest, maybe expanding that to other cities in the Midwest, not just Kansas City. I don't really know if I want to expand more Cafe Cafes. I just think that really having hyper focus on certain projects right now is something I want to like dedicate my time to. But I don't know what's next for me, honestly, but I'm like really excited about that. I find lots of joy in like the open landscape of like what's next for me. I don't know what is next for me, but I am really excited about just trying to make more change, try to make bigger impact, also have more fun. I'm just trying to have more fun. I'm trying to do more creative projects. I would love to do more film content that could tie into, you know, the Asian narrative storytelling, things like that. But honestly, I'm just trying to like survive day by day. And I feel lucky enough to say that maybe I have other dreams that I can chase and that I can do that.
Wow, there's so much wisdom in everything you just said. The ones that really stick out to me are, which resonates deeply with me, is not to associate your worth with achievement.
Yes.
I think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with. And I'm certainly also one of those people that grew up trying to get straight A's. And if I didn't, then I was a piece, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But what I will say, and this sounds true for you too, is that I didn't really start to, and this is a recent thing for me within the last couple of years, I didn't start to really feel fulfilled and like I didn't have to chase that external stimulus until I found something that was in service of others. And if I ever have friends that are entrepreneurs or music people, whatever they're doing, if they're doing well and they are still down about it, the first question I ask them is, how is your project in service of others?
Yeah.
Because if it's not, I think there's something inherent to humans and our sense of belonging and all that that just is deeply satisfying if that's integrated into whatever you're doing. And it sounds like with your big vision of the Asian community and all that, that's been identified for you as a really important piece of it. Yeah.
When you are able to see beyond yourself, see that other people have other stories, other struggles, that perspective is like so valuable and almost priceless to me, because for me, I've encountered racism, I've encountered tons of loss, trauma, depression, and honestly, all the traumas you think of, like I've been through it. But that has given me perspective of like, whoa, life can just be so much like bigger and more beautiful if you have a perspective, like opening your eyes to be like, you're not the only person that struggles. You're not the only person that lives these narratives. Like there are other people that suffers way more than you, and I don't know. It's just like having that perspective, that point of view of being like, it's not just about you, bro. Like there's a huge world out there. That has helped me feel tied to my purpose, but also just like as a human of this world, popping that little bubble a little bit helps to be like, okay, life's not that bad. And if life is bad, is there other perspectives or others just like kind of like beyond yourself?
Yeah. Totally.
And it helps a lot. It really helps when you're just like down and out about like your own life. Like just think about other people for a little bit and you're like, yeah, I should probably just like know that I'm actually fine.
Yeah. And that feeling also drives community, right? It's like you want to connect with someone on that same level. So real quick, let's just pitch everything you're doing. Where can people find you? All that kind of stuff.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, mainly, going to Cafe Cà Phé. Our coffee shop is probably the number one way that you can support us, because even one cup of coffee makes a huge difference, because all of my employees are 100% from marginalized communities, and they are 95% of them are all entrepreneurs themselves. So keeping my shop alive and well helps an entire staff continue to pursue their own personal dreams. And so that's the number one way you can support us. We are in Columbus Park, 0.3 miles away from CPKC Stadium, the new home of the Kansas City Current. So we are in right by the River Market. We're open every single day. That's one great way to support us. Another way to support us is to follow us on all socials and to see what's happening on our website, www.cafecafe.com. And we are releasing at the end of the month e-commerce. So we are now going to have all of our merch available for nationwide for people that are beyond Kansas City to support us. And yeah, just follow us on social media. A lot of what we do on social media is education based, fun, just like random stuff too. But definitely if you can follow us on social media, that helps a lot too. Just any person that gets to hear our story and the events and the things that we're trying to do, super impactful, super important.
Wow, yeah, stoked about the merch.
Yes, I'm so excited about it. I've been working on it for half a year now. To try and like bring a little bit more of Cafe Cà Phé to different parts of the States.
I love all the stuff you guys do, the merch and stuff.
Thanks.
The bottles, and the recent t-shirt for the Currents was really cool.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of different merch collabs. Our shirt, or our graphic designer, got featured as being like the May AANHPI artist feature of the Kansas City Current. She like got to design a shirt and they sold it at their games, and it was just super dope. But again, we're very collaborative, so we have some cool collaborations down the pipeline. But yeah, the biggest way that you can support is following us, and also engaging in the Asian community around you, asking questions, educating yourself, learning about if you know your Asian folks that work with you. Do you actually know them? Check in on them. Do you know what their ethnic heritage is? Do you even know how they're doing? Check in on them. So that's a great way to support our mission as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, awesome. You heard it. Buy a t-shirt, get a cup of coffee, check in on your friends.
Yes.
Thank you, Jackie.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Brad. I'm so honored and happy to be here, and I love what you do. I'm so excited for what's to come with Chase, and like I'm any part of shaping youth and shaping the future of folks that want to just strive and succeed is like definitely my wheelhouse. So I'm always going to be there to support you and support what you're doing. So,
well, I have a feeling our paths will cross again. So.
100%. I'll be back. So we can talk about anything we want in the next episode. But I'm just very, very excited for what's to come for you. And I'm happy that Cafe Cà Phê can be along for the ride.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. You heard it here. We'll see you next time on the Chase Your Dreams podcast. See you.
Chase your dreams, baby.